idea.
Yeah, I want to make sure it's in the camera range. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, we're going live now. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's live online author event with Greenlight Bookstore. I'm Katie from Greenlight, and we're thrilled to host tonight's event with Sugar Rodgers, presenting her new book, They Better Call Me Sugar, My Journey from the Hood to the Hardwood. She will be talking with Christopher John Farley, so you're in for an excellent time. Before we start, I just want to say a huge thanks to Sugar, Christopher, and the team at Black Sheep for making this happen, and to all of you for showing up. Though we're not able to host events in our store spaces, our community of authors and readers is still here. We're grateful for your support and for the chance to make space for conversation and connection. There's just a few housekeeping things to go over before we get started tonight. In our Zoom webinar, you can see and hear the speakers, but they can't see or hear you. They can see that you're here though, and you can see a count of fellow attendees on the top of your Zoom screen, but the exact location will depend on what kind of device you're using. There are a couple of different ways that you can interact with the author and with each other throughout tonight's event, which we highly encourage. The first is the chat, which you can find by clicking on the icon that looks like one speech balloon. You're welcome to post your comments and thoughts in the chat. It's a great way to show your appreciation for the author and to interact with your fellow attendees. So if you have a specific question you'd like to have answered by the author, please post that question in the Q&A module. You can find it by clicking on the icon that looks like two speech balloons. We'll be pulling questions only from the Q&A to be answered in the later part of the program, so please make sure you're putting them there and not in the chat. And importantly, tonight's featured book, They Better Call Me Sugar, is available for sale from Greenlight Bookstore. You can shop in person in our bookstore locations, 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the week, and you can purchase Sugar's book and many others on site. Or you can order online at greenlightbookstore.com for a quick pickup at the store or for shipping anywhere in the US. I'll drop the buy link in the chat in just a moment. If you care about supporting the careers of authors and the ongoing existence of independent bookstores, buying tonight's featured book is a great way to show your support. Our interviewer tonight is Christopher John Farley. He was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and lives in New Rochelle, New York. A graduate of Harvard University, Farley is the author of the acclaimed fantasy adventure novel, Game World, and the best-selling biography, Aaliyah, More Than a Woman, which was adapted into a hit Lifetime movie. Farley's young adult novel, Around Harvard Square, won an NAACP Image Award and was named a 2020 honor book by the Patterson Prize for Books for Young People. His latest young adult novel, 0 O'Clock, will publish in September 2021. He will be speaking with our featured author, Sugar Rodgers. She is a professional basketball player currently playing in the WNBA for the Las Vegas Aces. She honed her skills as a young girl growing up in Suffolk, Virginia, by shooting hoops with neighborhood drug dealers before eventually being recruited by the Georgetown Hoyas, making her the first person in her family to attend college. She graduated Georgetown as the leading scorer of all time and was drafted by the Minnesota Lynx in 2013. She also played several seasons with the New York Liberty before being traded to Las Vegas in 2019. She was named the WNBA All-Star team for her 2017 season with the New York Liberty. Her new book, They Better Call Me Sugar, is a message of hope and inspiration for young girls and boys everywhere, but especially those growing up in economically challenging conditions. Sugar delivers a powerful message of discipline, perseverance, and always believing in oneself. Sugar is going to be talking with Christopher and then after with all of you. Please take it away, Sugar and Christopher.
All right, thanks so much for that introduction. Sugar, it's so great to be talking with you. I love the WNBA, and now I feel like I'm in the bubble with the WNBA players, so this is great. This is all good.
No, thank you. Thanks, Greenlight, for having me. Thank you for, coming on and interviewing me and let's just chat it up.
Well, I love the book. The book is one of those really inspirational books. It takes you on a ride. It makes you, want to study harder. It makes you want to play harder. It makes you feel so many things. It really is a book that it could recommend to kids who want to make a better life for themselves. I recommend it to adults who maybe want to learn a thing or two about what it takes to be a professional athlete and someone who's a student at Georgetown. It's just a really great read. And one thing that really stood out to me is a couple years ago, there was this article that ran in the New York Times online about the tennis courts that star players grew up on, like Serena and Venus. And they just kind of had a picture of what the tennis court they used to play on looked like. And that told a story in and of itself. And in your book, you talk about the first hoop that you trained on. Tell me a bit about that hoop. I think that tells you something about you as an athlete and as a person. Tell me a bit of the story of the first hoop you ever had.
So it was a basketball hoop that my brother purchased from a white guy who lived up the street who was just trying to get rid of it. It was about $15 or so. And it had a wooden backboard. The rim is like bent down. And the part that holds the water, we had to put cinder blocks in it because it had a big hole in it. But my brother bought it home and it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, I think that playing on a hoop like that, that toughens you up. It gets you ready for a competition. You always read these stories about Pele, the soccer star, practicing with grapefruit, stuff like that. So right from the beginning, you were getting yourself ready for bigger things, I think. And the book also tells all these really incredible stories about the hardships you faced in your life, but more than that, hardships you managed to overcome. Like early on in your life, cops like seized your home. Tell me about that story. Why did they seize it? What did you do to get by that?
I can recall just sitting on the porch with a bunch of my nephews and my brother's friends when a couple unfamiliar faces came walking down the street. And we knew like police officer had come around because I grew up in the hood, like it's poverty, uh, drugs and gang related situations going on. But all of a sudden, like these police started moving towards us fast. And before I knew it, like everybody was sitting on the porch was in handcuffs besides me because I was underage. And man, like they took the house. The house wasn't in the best shape. And they ended up, you know, demolishing the house because my mom, she couldn't keep up. She was sick. She had lupus. I was a caretaker. I became her nurse 24/7. And, that's a big reason why I didn't go to school because somebody needed to stay home with my mom and take care of her. And that was me. So I made sure she was bathed. I made sure she ate. And I lived with my niece also, and my niece worked, and she had a young son, so I was helping take care of him as well. But you know, ultimately that's the way I became homeless. That's the way I started bouncing around from house to house.
And of course, the book tells a story that you do make it to Georgetown. You become Georgetown's all-time leading scorer, which is amazing to me because Georgetown's had so many great players. I mean, Eric Sleepy Floyd and Patrick Ewing, who's a personal hero of mine, and you scored more points than any Georgetown player I can name, which is absolutely crazy and a tribute to you and your talent. Um, uh, you know, Getting to Georgetown, you also met some great coaches there, including John Thompson. What was that like meeting him? What did he have to say to you as words of wisdom?
So when I first met Coach Thompson, he was sitting in this big wooden chair, and it was quote unquote like his throne. And I remember I'm like, man, like he's big, like he's huge. I've heard of him and heard stories about him. But one of the things that Coach Thompson always did was drop gems. And, he shared a bunch of his knowledge, that still resonates with me today. And he told me knowledge is power.
Hmm.
And I can remember a time where Iverson came to the school and I told him like, I want to meet Iverson one day. And he texted me and was like, are you free? Do you have class? So I was like, no. I was like, yeah, I have class. He was like, well, you can't meet Iverson because knowledge is power. And till this day, I haven't met Iverson.
You haven't met Allen Iverson. You think that
I have
great
not.
Georgetown guards at some point you'd get together just naturally, right?
Yeah, he's from the 757. He played for Boo Williams. I'm from the 757. I played for Boo Williams. He went to Georgetown. I went to Georgetown. We just have a lot in common. He went to the NBA. I went to the WNBA, but we still haven't met in person.
Well, maybe that'll happen at some point down the line. This seems like something that's inevitable for that to happen.
Yeah.
And of course, your first year in the WNBA, you end up winning the WNBA championship. What was that like as a rookie, going from 0 to 60, going from the first year in the league to winning it all, seeing what it takes to be a champion? What was that like? What did you learn from that experience?
Just how to overcome like adversity. I didn't play my rookie year that much, and I came from Georgetown just being a star. But when you get to the WNBA, everybody's a star. Like everybody who comes from college is a star. They came from, organizations that are good and they are good players as well. But I just really took in the moment and I enjoy every moment. I got to play with some great players. And I got to experience a lot. I've learned so much this my rookie year that I carried throughout me with my time now in the WNBA, just helping the young players understand like it's bigger than basketball.
Is there any kind of a hazing process that goes on the WNBA when you're a rookie? Do you have to carry people's, water to the bench, or what's that like?
I've heard of some stories, but for me, it's more so just during practice, we had to get the vets some to drink, and we had to, if the vets were tired in the drill, then we was pushed to the front to go first because we young and we still got fresh legs. Just stuff like that. Nothing too crazy. I remember I missed out because I had to go graduate. And they made the rookies dress up like grandmas in the airport, but that was pretty hilarious. So I missed out on that. And I know it was one other thing that they did, and I happened not to be because I was again at graduation. But when it's time to run out, they tell the rookies like run out to center court, and they never run out behind them. They stay in and laugh and chuckle, and then eventually come out. So I mean that's kind of it, but nothing too crazy.
One thing that drives me crazy about ESPN and the way sports are covered on TV and the WNBA is covered is I hardly ever see women's sports end up in those little clips on Sports Center. When they do the top 10, maybe they'll throw in one women's sports performance, maybe two, but it's never like 50% like it should be. And it drives me crazy, especially because the WNBA, to me, in many ways is better than the NBA, because I think there's more of a focus on strategy, on passing, on shooting, on technical skills, and it's not just about like the power dunk. So it should get some more coverage. It looks great on TV. But why do you think that's happening? What can the public do to change that so we get more of our WNBA fix on TV?
I think that's a great question for ESPN, but for the public, they can change it by becoming more knowledgeable. Go to a WNBA game, and if you like it, continue to support. But if you don't, well, you're missing out on some phenomenal women who play the game that they genuinely love. It's like poetry in motion when you watch the WNBA and what we do and how we play the game.
Now, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she runs track. She's that's her thing. What can we? But one thing I find, because I also have an 18-year-old son who plays basketball, and the amount of sort of social support my son gets for playing basketball seems to be way more than they give women at the school. I mean, they get cheer, they get bigger crowds. There's just much more attention on what they do in sports like football and basketball than for the girls and what they do in sports like track and even basketball. Well, what can we do to make sure our daughters and our sisters and women get more encouragement in sports on a youth level so they can go into play in college and maybe go on to the WNBA or whatever? Is there anything that can be done to change the culture to encourage more women to get into sports?
I think one thing you're gonna hear me say a lot is becoming knowledgeable. Get an understanding of, what you're getting into and what your kids are getting into, and just telling your family, like, come out, support, my daughter's playing just as well as my son. But just to get more women in sports or girls in sports, just signing them up for different sports to see which one they really like, because a lot of parents sign kids up for sports that they think their kids should be playing, but being able to sign them up for something that they don't know about, but they may love eventually. But just keeping them involved and getting them involved in different sports.
Now, speaking of getting knowledgeable, you certainly have been like growing in knowledge over the last couple of years, because in the book, you start off, you talk about yourself in grade school, and you're kind of an indifferent student. You don't really care too much about grades. You get to Georgetown, things begin to change. You start focusing on your studies more. And now You're only like a day away from getting your master's at Georgetown, which is incredible. Where did that switch get flipped? How did that happen? How did you end up sort of motivating yourself to becoming a scholar?
I think when I went to Georgetown, they wanted me to be successful. They surrounded me with the things that I needed. So if I needed a tutor, they made sure I had a tutor. If I needed this, they made sure I needed that. But I had to ask for that because I was flunking out my freshman year. Like I was about to flunk out. And I'm like, I'm about to blow an opportunity to be special in whatever it is that I got ahead of me. So I ended up reaching out and saying, I need help because I come from a background where you can't ask for help. People will use that against you. Or they'll try to, they just use it against you. But Georgetown put all the necessities in place for me to be great, for me to succeed, for me to be successful. And I'm forever grateful that I chose Georgetown when it was time to go to school.
That's such an important point you make about asking for help, because as a parent of two kids who are in high school, I see that when kids ask for help, they can go on the road to success. When they're afraid to ask for help, that's when they flounder. And I find, unfortunately, sometimes in the Black community, and I think you can talk about this, is that we often don't want to ask for help because we don't want to show weakness. But what we often don't realize is that sometimes other white families or richer families, they're asking for the help. They're used to getting help. And when they receive it, and then they go on to these bigger, better schools, and it would be a better strategy for us to ask for help when it's there, because in the end, that'll pay off in your educational life. Can you talk a bit about that, about why perhaps in our community, we're often reluctant to ask for academic help when everybody else is asking for help and maybe not advertising it?
I think it's the fact that like I go back to like the background, like in my household, you had to, it's this thing where now like the younger generation said, like you got to get it from the muscle, but somebody has to tell me how to build that muscle up. So if I'm trying to build muscle, I'm not going to just have a muscle. Like if I got to work out, I got to do this. So if I don't know how to do that, I need to ask for help. And, that's what I've been able to do at Georgetown, but also, them just saying like, we are here for help. Just as much as you getting help as an African-American student, a Caucasian student is getting help, or this, if they come from this background, they're getting help. But Georgetown just made me comfortable asking. And they don't hold it against me, where I grew up in a sense where they held it against me. If I ask you, could you do this? And they'll be like, well, you got to do this for me. Like Georgetown wasn't looking for anything back. They just wanted me to be a product of their environment.
And that relates to something else in your book that really struck me, is that obviously you've been through so many sort of tumultuous periods in your life, with unfortunately your mother passing away, and the constant threat of the sort of drugs and drug dealers hanging out when you're trying to get your basketball games straight. And it's finally you were unafraid to sort of reach out and get therapy, to sort of talk about some of the things you've gone through, something that again, in our community, we're not always willing to reach out and get therapeutic help when other communities do, and they profit from it. Can you tell me about the importance of therapy and why that can be a good thing, and why we shouldn't be afraid to reach out for that help if we need it?
Yeah. So when I went to college, one of my coaches that I bonded with prior to coming, like his name was Coach Brown, he suggested that I go to counseling. And I immediately said, like, counseling is for white people. And I was just ignorant to the fact of just going. And also, counseling is taboo in the African American community. If you go to counseling, they call you crazy. And like I said, I became knowledgeable. I did my research, and I wanted to be helped. So I wanted to better myself and traumatize and do and it helped me. It just helped me understand how traumatized I was. And it helped me was able to work through all the situations that I've been through.
Yeah, and there's one other thing you bring up in the book that's a really important concept that speaks to that. This whole idea of self-talk. Uh, can you tell me what that is and the role that it plays in your life?
Mhm. I think for me, like the self-talk was just saying, like, reassuring myself that every day when I wake up, like I'm gonna have a positive attitude towards self because we beat ourselves up. Sometimes we are worst, our worst enemy. But my three secrets to being successful and what I call success is one, just never giving up on my goals and dreams, and two, surrounding myself with positive people, and three, just seeking advice from people who have been where I'm trying to get.
Yeah, those are good rules to follow. Where did you get them from?
Just my mom. My mom instilled that in me early because before my mom knew she was sick, my mom always knew she was sick, but she was preparing me for the worst. And through her journey until she passed, she was like, "You're gonna have to be out here for yourself. You're gonna have to fend for yourself. You're gonna have to take care of yourself. You're gonna have to grow up before it's your time to be grown." And she was like, get up, say positive things, encourage yourself, always believe in self. And I've always betted on myself since my mom left.
Now, of course, we're here to talk about your book, They Better Call Me Sugar. What made you decide to write a book? I mean, a lot of athletes write books, and then the books are boring because their lives, are really just about, maybe working out and some interesting games, and they don't go deeper than that. This book goes a whole lot deeper. It really is about some very deep issues you've gone through, the strategies you use to overcome them, and you've had like a really crazy, varied life that is ending with you getting an advanced degree from Georgetown. But to do this book, you had to get really personal. I mean, you had to reveal some really intimate details about things you've gone through, and a lot of people would be reluctant to actually reveal that kind of stuff. So, what made you decide? You know what? I'm going to open up the doors here and let people know about what I've gone through. What made you decide to do that?
For one, I went to counseling. I had to go to counseling before the book was going to release to make sure that I was ready to tell the world about these things that I was going through because I feel as though people will judge me. And it wasn't about that. I wrote the book so that I could inspire somebody or help somebody or give somebody hope that is going through the same situation as me. When they read the book, they're like, oh, Sugar been through this, but she still was able to get here. Like my mom's death didn't stop me from being successful. I never used that as an excuse, and I never wanted anyone to feel sorry for me. I just, hoping that I can inspire somebody, someone who may be going through the same situation or even worse.
Now, right now, of course, we talked about the fact that you're getting your advanced degree, and that ultimately you hope to move into being an agent or going into the front office of a sports team. How do you think things are changing for women in terms of sports management and those kinds of roles, and being able to be part of the front office of not only women's teams but men's teams as well? Are things getting better? Are they getting worse? Are the opportunities
They're,
opening up? Give me your thoughts on that.
they're definitely getting better. Becky Hammond has opened the door for women to come in. Like right now in the NBA, there's at least 8 WNBA players who are assistant coaches. And you had Teresa Weatherspoon, Christy Tolliver, Twin Cash, who was with the WNBA front office, but then she moved over to the NBA front office for the Pelicans. But these women are, although they women, the people hiring them don't see them as women. They just see them as humans who can do the job. So it's kind of trendy now, but women are still fighting for equal rights in the workplace. And I think they just open the door for women to come.
See, that's a great point, because one thing I always wonder watching the WNBA is that I know for the NBA, virtually anyone who who gets a season in the NBA is going to be a millionaire. I mean, just given just what the rookie salaries are, they're crazy. Just crazy talk. How much money WNBA and NBA players make is not the same for the WNBA. You can play there a couple of years and you're going to be earning 5 figures maybe, and you hope you can make 6 figures. How does it feel when you're a WNBA player and you know your talent is the same as the guys, and yet the pay scale is so wildly different? What do the women talk about behind the scenes, and what can be done to make that more equitable?
I mean, we always talk about, man, we can't wait till the WNBA players are getting paid millions. The WNBA is still young. It's 25 years old. And we're still growing. As you can see in the new CBA, the salaries go up this year. They're not going to go up to the millions. You know, we wish they would, but they'll go up a couple $100,000, couple $1,000. But that's growth. That's one step closer. We can't get it all at one time, even though we want to, but we can't. But it's just, getting people to buy in the WNBA, getting that support that we need, being on ESPN, getting more exposure so that we can get more viewerships and bring in more revenue.
It seems like it could happen, because I look at what happened to women's tennis when they started making the prize money equal. And I enjoy women's tennis more than men's tennis. I couldn't really name any male tennis stars that I care about right now, but you could probably name 7 or 8 women's tennis stars who are great, that kids have their posters on their wall and are following them on Twitter or on Instagram. And the game has completely changed, and also the women get more sponsorships. I mean, Serena and Venus, and they're all out there making a lot of money for sponsors too. Is there any reason why that couldn't be the same in basketball?
I think there is sponsorships. Like, people are really starting to buy into the WNBA, because now you see women getting sponsorship from different sneaker deals that they weren't getting before. Just, like I said, like, they're buying into the sport. I'm happy about that, because it's going to create opportunities for women to come behind us. So we may not see the millions ever, but in the next 10 to 15 years, 25 years down the line, like, we'll be the ones who say, like, we put in the work to help these women be able to make the same as men.
Well, luckily you're getting into a field where you can really get paid, book publishing. That's where the real money is.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'm always fascinated too, because I love the last season of the NBA and the WNBA. We were talking about this before the cameras came on. It was just fascinating to see people working and living in the bubble. That I thought it intensified things. That it was team versus team, player versus player, and there were no outsiders. It was just great. It was like a death match. I just loved watching the end of the WNBA season and the NBA season. It was great television. What was it like for you as a player, living in that bubble? Can you tell us a bit about what day-to-day life was like?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the WNBA players coming to fight for social justice movement. That was amazing to have all 144 women there fighting for the same thing. You don't have 144 players in the same building at one time. It just I never thought it could happen, but it happened. And to be a part of it was amazing. Also, it's just, once you get the plan and you get to see everybody every day. And it's like, man, I get to see her again. She just beat me last night. or you either happy, like, we whooped them last night. So, or you saw a ref in the elevator and you like, man, he or she called that bad call that caused us to lose the game. You know how you try to blame it on the refs. But no, I mean, it was a great experience. But after, I definitely had to detox, because being confined was my thing. Like, I'm just like, man, I'm confined. Like, I can only move in this certain space. And I'm like, well, for me, it's just like jail. Like, I talk, like, when my sister was in jail and she was incarcerated and she was behind this glass wall, and she kind of had to do what the people say. So for me, that was a little bit like, oh man, it took me back to that memory, although I was free.
You mentioned really important we should get into is the fact that, especially in recent years because of Colin Kaepernick, because of people like Maya Moore, because of people like LeBron James, that sports has taken a turn and social justice issues are very much on the minds of athletes like yourself, and you're helping to sort of change the culture. And we've seen recently this decision with George Floyd, where his killer is now facing time in jail. So justice is being served. How important is it for you as an athlete to make sure that your voice is heard on social justice issues? And do you think athletes are actually having an effect on the culture, a real effect that's changing the game?
I think athletes are using their platforms more than anything, especially those big names, like you say, like Colin Kaepernick, was one of the first. The WNBA, in my eyes, was one of the first as well, when we got fined for wearing those Black Lives Matter shirts. But Colin Kaepernick not being scared to sacrifice his livelihood. So you got to give thanks and praise to him and everybody who has, you know, um, brought into this movement. And, you know, um, I think it's great. It's showing that we can all come together and we can play sports at the same time while, just being able to use your platform to fight for social justice. It's progress. And I think that has an impact on the outcome of George Floyd case.
Yeah, I think definitely athletes speaking out help change the tone of the culture. And I think it made it more socially acceptable now for finally these juries to say, you know what, this ain't right. This guy's going to jail. I don't know if it would have happened if the WNBA wasn't speaking out and wearing jerseys with the social justice message you had, or Colin Kaepernick wasn't taking a knee, or LeBron James wasn't speaking out. I think all those things really did help set the tone for what we're seeing now, because it didn't happen before in Minnesota. And now I think it set a good tone for police officers to say, well, we got to be within certain boundaries, or this may happen to us. So it's a great thing on the part of athletes like yourself and others in the WNBA and the NBA to bring us to this moment.
For sure.
But in the end, when you're an athlete, one of your core things really is, staying in shape, making sure you're working at peak conditions. And one difficulty I find, and of course I'm not an athlete, I'm just a tech executive. And one thing I found is it was really difficult to stay in shape during this whole quarantine period. I mean, I couldn't go into the gym. All I could do basically is run. I got a Peloton, but that gets boring after a while. I can only imagine being a world-class athlete like yourself. What do you do to, stay on point? Just make sure you're in the shape you need to be when you can't do all the usual things that you've trained yourself to do for years.
So when we was in the bubble, before I got there, I had COVID. And yeah, I'm back home. I was back home. I had COVID. I'm in my house. So I really had to work out in my room, which is the most boringest thing you can do. The only thing I could do is go outside and walk. I couldn't even go outside and run because the side effects of COVID. They didn't know if it affected your heart. They were still kind of doing research. But just getting outside like the old days now is just how you can stay in shape if you can't get into a gym. So whether you go outside and run, whether you go outside and walk, whether you purchase a bike, I found riding a bike outside to be way better than riding a Peloton bike, but that's just me. But I had a support system. My high school opened the gym for me because they knew this is the way that I make money. This is my livelihood. So they was like, we may not open the gym for everybody, but for Sugar Rodgers, we're going to open the gym, let her go and work out and then come back home. But just making sure I eat right too, because there was a lot of snacks available to me, like the cookies, the chips, the candy. I wanted it all, but just being disciplined and knowing that I can't eat all that stuff. Oh, I'm gonna get fat. I'm gonna get overweight. I'm gonna be out of shape. Just sticking to what I know best.
Yeah, the having snacks available that's part of the problem. Because in quarantine, I figured, I deserve something. I'm living at home, so I gotta have something around the house. But luckily, my daughter eats really healthy, so I decided to start eating her food, which is grapes and apples and
But
And
they say that's bird food. They call it bird food.
well, she
Because
eats
I'm a
steaks
pet. At
too. She
first, I
eats
was a
steaks too.
vegan. Oh, so first I was a vegan, but then I became a pescatarian,
Oh,
and
wow.
I have found it a little bit difficult to be a vegan. But then when I came back to being a pescatarian, it just gets harder because now I just want to open the door and eat me a piece of fried chicken and eat a nice big steak. But no, just staying disciplined is best. But just change your diet, switch it up, just see how you like, different things.
Now, tell me, for everyone who doesn't know, what are the basic differences between being a vegan and a pescatarian? So,
So a vegan doesn't eat meat or any like dairy products, and a pescatarian just eats seafood, like most things that come out the sea, but you still don't tap into, eating dairy products.
now, one thing I always worry about, especially because you're competing against some of the fittest, most fit women in the world. Do you feel like that kind of a diet gives you the energy level and it gives your muscles the nutrients they need to compete on that kind of a level?
Oh no, for sure. Like you go, you do the blood work, you see the nutritionist and all of that, and they let you know, like, look, you need more iron, you need more zinc, you need more this, but you able to, just supplement it with like pills or something different, or you need protein, drink more protein shakes, which are plant-based as well. So just doing your research, but making sure you seek your doctor, seek your nutritionist, and seek help.
See, I'm interested in this for my own purposes now, because I'm wondering what kind of, because obviously you're someone who's attuned to changes in your body as an athlete. When you changed up your diet and sort of moved away from, red meat and things like that, what kind of changes did you find? Did you find was it more difficult to build up muscle? Was the muscle more effective? How did it affect you as an athlete?
Okay, so when I first started becoming a vegan, I was a fat vegan. I was just I wasn't eating right, if that makes sense, but I still was not eating meat or none of the dairy products. So then I went to a nutritionist. She was like, "Oh no, you can't eat like that. You're still gonna be heavy and overweight." So then I just started to eat. I got on a plan. So with this plan, I only can eat certain things in the morning, afternoon, night, and I became leaner and fitter, and I actually became skinnier. And I was like, "Oh man, I don't know if I like this body." Like, uh whatnot. But then I was like, now I'm gonna implement meat back in. And I like my meat body. I like my seafood pescatarian body, if that makes sense.
It's funny. Now you've gotten so many accolades over the years, and you've been a McDonald's All-American, you've been a WNBA All-Star, but one of the most interesting awards you've gotten, I think, is being Sixth Woman of the Year. But what is that like being Sixth Woman of the Year? Because I always wondered, it's obviously a tribute to you as as an athlete and as a teammate. But when you're such a great sixth woman, are you like, should I be the fifth woman? Should I be playing the game more? I mean, what is it like being Sixth Woman of the Year? I've always wondered.
At that was one of the hardest awards in my mind to win mentally, because it bothered me mentally. When I was in New York, like I said, I was in Minnesota. I got traded to New York, and I spent the first 2 years trying to figure my way out, playing 10 minutes here, playing 12 minutes there. I reached out to Teresa Weatherspoon. She seen me one day in the gym. She was like, you're not looking right. Like, you're kind of looking upset. I was mad because I didn't play that following game. And I told her from that day forward, like, I'm going to come in the gym. I'm going to be in here before. I'm going to be in here after. And then I'll come back late night. And she was all for it. That's what we did. I grind. Like, I kept grinding. And I'm like, all right. I eventually got into the starting spot. And I'm like, man, this is what I wanted. Then it just took a turn where the coaches seen that when I'm in the starting spot, but the coach was like, "We need you to come off the bench because we can't get nobody to produce off the bench." So I'm like, "What the hell? Like, seriously? Like I've worked hard to get in the starting lineup. Now you're gonna tell me you need me to come off the bench? That doesn't make sense in my eyes. I've worked hard for this spot." And they was like, "We need to try you off the bench." I'm like, all right, am I gonna do well off the bench? Of course, I know I'm gonna do well off the bench. I started coming off the bench, but it started to bother me mentally because if you think about it, I worked so hard to get to the starting lineup, And I ended up being very successful off the bench, but that was one of the hardest things I had to do, go from starting to coming off the bench. But I also just wanted to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. And that's what I did when I started to come off the bench. It was never set out for me to win Six Women of the Year. It was just sacrificing for the betterment of the team so that we can all be
That's great.
successful.
So we're coming to the end point of our conversation here. I just want to check to see, we've got some questions that are coming in. And I'm going to turn to those questions in 1 second, because I got one last question for you that's a non-basketball academic question. I want to know what your dissertation is about and how you picked the subject.
My dissertation is about the underrepresentation of women in male-dominated sports, and I picked it because I'm passionate about it. I feel as though the WNBPA should create a 12-month leadership and coaching development program to help current and retired players become valuable candidates for leadership positions, such as in the NBA or NCAA Division I men's basketball, because you don't see a lot of women there. A lot of women who do come out the league, they can easily, I'm not going to say easily, but they can go into the NCAA and coach women. You don't see that in men. There's only one female coach who coach men, and her name is Tamara Moore. She coaches at I want to say like a small university. She's the first female and the only female coach, but it's not a lot. So I was like, let me just hone in on this. And I was very passionate because I've seen women come out of the WNBA and they don't know what's next. They don't have a transition. And I think the WNBPA, which is the Players Association, should have something in place, because the NFL has it with the trust program, and then the NBA has it. And I just feel as though the WNBA needs something like that as well.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. Sounds like you got a topic for your next book too. So, you're on your way. So I'm gonna get to some of these questions. I had some other questions, but we have to, like I was gonna ask you, if you're ever in New York, my son's trying to make his college team. Maybe if you're ever in New York, you can give him some pointers on how to play guard.
Facts.
Let's see. So here's some questions. How long did it take you to write your book? That's from Wanda Cross.
Wanda Cross, out of Suffolk, Virginia, I'm hoping. It just took me a while because I started writing just in therapy. They would in counseling, they would say, I didn't want to talk. So it was like, just write it on paper. And then that's how I started writing the stories. Like my first year of college, I would just go in there and write, but I didn't know they were stories. Then my senior year, I'm like, look, I want to write a book. And then it took me from my senior year to now. So that's about 8 years.
Okay. And again, the name of the book is They Better Call Me Sugar. And if you haven't read it, go out and get it. It's really a great read. It's a great gift, I think, for any young person in your life, or if you're an old person, read it too. It's just a fascinating read. So I certainly loved it. So I couldn't recommend it higher. Okay, let's see. Hi, Sugar. First of all, thank you for making this open and for sharing your vulnerability and story. Curious what directions you see your post-basketball playing career going with writing. Could be beyond that. Thank you for sharing and can't wait to watch games once COVID is contained. Lynx fan, but in Vegas. Blessings. Okay, so the question there really is, what direction do you see your post-basketball playing career going? You haven't quite started that yet, but when that happens, where do you see that career going post-basketball?
I really want to be a coach. Like I've always said, like I want to do something in player development, just because that's who I was as a player. I always stayed in the gym, just working out. And I know, like, I just want to help young women and or young men become better human beings, just all over. Just being that mentor, big sister, players coach.
Okay, here's a great question. And if you read the book, there's a lot about golf. You were a great golfer, especially when you were younger, and then you moved on to focus on basketball. So someone, Richard Saunders ask Sugar about her golf game. What role did the discipline of golf play in regards to becoming a basketball player? That's a really good question.
For those who don't know, I was a golfer. I played on Tiger Woods' team when I was younger. I mean, for me, just being able to compete, that was an individual sport. But in basketball, you can't be an individual. Like you got to be a whole team. So, I mean, for me, it just taught me sharing is caring, if that makes sense. But just being able to take that hard work over, because you spend a lot of time on the golf course. It's just like any sport. You spend a lot of time practicing, and I just took that over to basketball and just being disciplined and you know what it is that I'm trying to get done or what it is I'm trying to accomplish.
Have you ever thought of taking golf back up after you finish playing in the WNBA? You think you could do some damage on the women's tour?
I'm pretty sure if I was serious and I, got out there and start practice again, I could. Like, I was natural talent. I'm natural pretty much at any sport that you put in front of me. But golf, no, people around here ask me that all the time because they knew, like when I was younger, like I was ranked number one, like I was receiving all these scholarship papers in the mail, and I was only like 11 years old. And I stopped doing it when my mom passed away because it's something that we did together. And everybody like, well, you gonna go back? You gonna play golf after finish playing in the WNBA? And I'm like, no, I just do it as a hobby because if I couldn't do it with my mom, I didn't want to do it at all.
Um, Now, one thing I was wondering as I was reading the book is that, because I remember my dad very much wanted me to go into computer science. This is back in the 80s. And I realized later, I didn't go into computer science, but I realized later on that he had it completely right. If I just followed what he said, I'd probably, own like a lot of Apple stock now. But only late in life did I become a technology executive, and now I'm at Audible, which is part of Amazon. But did your mom really have it right when she's pushing you into golf? I mean, golf, that's a lot of big money in golf.
It was. So maybe that's the reason why she wanted me to stay in golf. She was like, you're gonna be on the LPGA. Like it's nothing. Like golf always came first because I played golf. Then I played basketball outside my house. And then eventually she let me play for the church league. And I played football, which is Pop Warner football. So I was the only female on my male team. And I used to crack the guys up and knock them down and, just make them cry. Because when I took my helmet off, they seen I was a girl. And I was like, that's a girl? And I'm like, yeah, I could play football. I could do, anything you can do. I could do it better.
That's great. So, what's the first thing? This is from Jacqueline Miller. What is the first thing you want to do after you graduate to celebrate?
It's Jacqueline Miller from Up to Us Sports. Shout out to Up to Us Sports. I think I just want to lay in her bed all week, but I'm pretty sure that's not gonna happen. I mean, maybe take a vacation. That's probably not gonna happen until after the WNBA season. But no, I probably just sit back and say, man, like I made it. Like I'm doing something with myself, and hold it up to my mom. Like I'm doing it, and I know she's proud of me.
Well, I'm sure she is. Wanda Cross had two good questions. I want to go one at a time. She asked, you sort of hinted at this, but you didn't really go into it. Are you still golfing? Do you still golf now and again on weekends, or have you left it completely behind?
No, I still golf. When I have time, I go out there and hit golf balls, and I hit them. Like I ain't hitting them in the woods. I'm hitting them straight down the fairway. But no, I still golf. I enjoy going out there. It's peaceful. Um, I go out there sometimes with my friends, and I just sometimes just go out there by myself.
Do you ever golf against other WNBA or NBA stars and take their money?
No, not yet. Not yet. I got to put in some more time. Because although I don't hit it in the woods, I might hit it in the water. I might hit it in the sand. I still need some practice.
And Wanda also asked, will there be another book? Is that something you're already thinking about? What you might write next after this one?
Yeah, I'm not saying it will be another book, but I am thinking about writing more, especially more detail about growing and some of the things that I will do in depth in college and my WNBA career, because I think that's important as well. So hopefully I start writing soon.
And also, Richard sent us another question I should mention too, where he asked, How have you shared your story with your fellow WNBA players? What has been their reaction?
Um,
Do they know everything
I'm
you've
gonna
been through? Do they know your story? They know that your house got seized by the cops and what happened to your brother and to your mom and the challenges you faced?
some of the stuff. I'm an introvert, so I'm very like to myself. Is I have a couple relationships in the WNBA, and some of them still don't know. I mean, if they read the book, they'll know. And I like I said, like I stay to myself. For the ones who do know me, they know like some of these stories. They don't know them all, but when they read the book, if they read the book, they'll find out more, and then they'll understand why I am an introvert or why I don't do certain things or like to party or like to drink or different things of that nature.
Now, another good question from Christopher Hearn. Sugar, how hard was it to adjust from being a top player in college? I mean, one of the best college players ever and the top player at Georgetown ever, to becoming a role player once you made it to the WNBA. I think a lot of people don't understand the quantum leaps between stages sometimes. It's one thing to be a high school player, nothing to be a college player, another thing to be a D1 player, nothing to be a WNBA player. And then whatever team you're on, maybe your skills fit a particular slot and maybe you're best coming off the bench. What is it like ego-wise to deal with that, knowing that you're one of the best players in the world and you're playing a role and not necessarily the focus on a team?
I've always been humble about things. I'm like, God is not gonna put me through things that I can't handle. But I remember just chatting with Teresa Weatherspoon and she saying, you can be a star in your role. So whether you come off the bench or you start or you the 12th man, like you're a star, that's what they need from you. And then just buying into that. That's how I've been able to last in the WNBA because the average female stays in the WNBA for 3 years and I've did it 8 years thus far. So just buying into my role and just saying like, I'm gonna adapt to the situation. So whether they need a star today, they may need a bench player tomorrow from me.
What was it like when you finally made the WNBA All-Star game? And that must have been a
I
nice
just felt like
validation
I accomplished
of what you were
something.
doing. What was that
Yeah, I
like?
just felt like I accomplished something. I mean, that's kind of the thing, like making the WNBA All-Star game. So when it was like, oh, you're an all-star, I'm like, oh man, like my hard work is being seen. And then I get to go represent my team in the All-Star game. But not only that, just represent my city of Suffolk. Um, just to be able to be the first to do it where I come from has been tremendous for me and then the people in my area to just be able to brag and be like, oh, we got one. Like Sugar Rodgers, she plays in the WNBA, but she's from Suffolk, Virginia. Because I'm from a small city, like a crabs in a bucket type city, where everybody's just trying to pull people down. But I mean, when we come together to support, like we can push everybody up. Like we can push everybody out of these some of these hectic situations.
How was coming from a place like Suffolk, Virginia? How do you think that shaped you? Do you think that you would have been as great a player as you are now if you'd come from someplace else?
No, coming from Suffolk, Virginia, that's why I'm the woman I am today. It has shaped me tremendously. It has shown me so much. And then just the people here, they have my back. They're gonna support me 100%, whether I play basketball, whether I golf, whether I write a book, whatever it is that I want to do. I've just been great in the community just far as giving back and supporting the kids here and the people here. So they're just showing me the same love.
Also, have you ever thought about playing internationally? I know that
I did. I did play internationally. I played in Israel. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I played in Israel. I didn't like it as much. I played in Slovakia, and there's no white people there. You're like, I mean, it's no black people there. You're like a celebrity when
I
you
was like,
go
there are
and you
plenty of
walk
white people there.
around. People, people want to touch your hair. People just amazed at your color, like the person in life. So I'm like, oh man, like this is overwhelming. But I played in France and I loved it. I probably could live in France. I played in Montpellier. Shout out to them. Where else did I play? Turkey. But Turkey, they was bombing when I was there. And playing overseas just made me appreciate the States much more.
But do you feel like there's an appreciation for women's sports in these other countries that we don't have in the US? And what can we do to get ourselves on that level where they appreciate the women's athletic prowess more?
They just appreciate sports. Like you can throw a rock in a hole and there's gonna be packed to bat like it's a Super Bowl. But they just appreciate sports. And over there they do appreciate the women's game. Just like the man's game, if that's game gonna sell out, the women's game gonna sell out as well. But me, most times they don't how I look at it, they don't see gender when it comes to sports. They just see humans playing sports.
Interesting. What I was going to ask is, could you see yourself, after the WNBA playing career is over, going overseas and playing some more?
No, once my career is over, like I'm tying my shoes up and I'm throwing them on a what is it? One of those lines out in the streets,
Telephone line?
electric line. I'm retired after that. I'm done.
That's great. Let me see if we have any other good questions that are coming in that we should get to. Danta Mizell says Second Avenue in the city is so proud of you.
Well, thank you. Second Avenue. That's Williamstown. That's the little town that I grew up in. Well, we call it my hood. So yeah, Williamstown, great neighborhood. You should check it out anytime you're in the 757.
Another question is, let Sugar know that Richard Saunders is from Suffolk. Remember her in summer school one year in elementary school. We would have conversations about golf. And any other questions here we need to ask? Any, and I know right now you're thinking about what team to come back to. Mark Fogarty asks, any chance you'll come back to the Liberty?
If the Liberty called me, baby, we shall see.
Are you someone who cares about what particular team you play for? Are you someone like, I'll take all comers? Or are you looking for different regions that you want to play in?
If I feel as though like I don't talk, like I said, like I don't talk to a lot of players in the league, but you'll hear a lot. And if it's like a negative locker room, if the locker room is negative, then the results of the team is going to be negative as far as like the chemistry. That's not a team that I want to go into, not unless they cleaning it out and they bringing me in to keep the positivity going. But for the most part, any team that calls, I'm like, all right, cool. But if it's a negative situation, I'm like, no, like I'll pass. I'm okay.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of our time here. My last question for you is, what do you hope people take away from when they read this book? What do you hope they get out of it when they read it? I mean, I got a lot out of it myself in terms of, just inspiration, a great story, getting to know what, a real WNBA player is like and the things that she goes through. But what do you hope people come away with when they read your book?
When they see challenging kids who come from backgrounds like mine, like those kids have something inside of them, and just take a chance on kids who are like me.
Well, that's great. So the book is They Better Call Me Sugar. I hope you own it, you buy it, you read it. I loved it. I think it's terrific. I think it's one of those old ages kind of books. And Sugar, it was great to talk to you. Hope to see you playing again in the league very soon. Or maybe I'll see you on a golf course doing that. Who knows what you'll do? Or maybe I'll see you in a classroom. Maybe you'll be teaching some stuff.
Yeah.
We don't know. Your life could take all sorts of cool directions. So thanks a lot, Sugar. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for, being an interview. Thank you to Greenlight Books for having me. Thank you for everyone who showed up today. I really appreciate the love and support.
Thank you both so much for that fantastic discussion. And thanks to everybody for joining us. Don't forget to buy your copy of They Better Call Me Sugar in store or online at greenlightbookstore.com. The link is in the chat. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night.